Hi there, I'm David Pitchford. I'm a grad student in the Primate Behavior and Ecology program,
Hi, I'm Olivia Dittrich. I am a biology major.
and this is our talk assessment.
And I'm Maria Kogan. I'm a bio major as well.
Alright, so I guess we'll jump to the first few questions. You said it was Maria, right? Awesome. So, how old are you?
I had to think about that. 23?
Yeah, we're going to go for like all the super personal questions first.
Okay.
Why did you choose your major, and what is your career intention?
Well, I want to be an astronaut, but in general, I'm interested in like research and the sciences. I chose my major because I started as a political science major my freshman year when I lived in DC, and I realized that was not the right fit for me. So I switched to the sciences because I feel like there's a lot more logic in actual science, which is why I like it. So.
Didn't want to be a political science major, but you agreed to this. Okay.
Well, thank you. So I'm just going to ask some questions to gather demographic information, if that's all right. Am I still in the show?
Yeah.
So, what's your gender identity? Do you have, and what are your preferred pronouns?
I definitely identify as a female, born as a female. I'm very boring in that sense. Very
Okay. And,
simple.
I guess, what's your sexual orientation?
Bisexual, probably.
Okay.
Easiest way to label it.
Do you and your family have any religious affiliations, and do your affiliations differ from your family?
My mother is Russian Orthodox. My father is Jewish, so I'm technically nothing. Because it's easier that way.
Okay.
That's fair.
So, would you say that they're a pretty devout family, or are they pretty, like, on the DL about things, just being in an
No.
interfaith marriage?
I mean, like, when I was growing up, I feel like my family tried to just show me both sides, like, both types of religions, but there was never, like, pressure to, like, go to church or the synagogue. It was more like, if you're interested in this, we can do this. This is how we do this. So it just turned out that I wasn't interested in it, but there wasn't ever really, like, pressure to pick a side, which is nice.
Okay. So I guess going back to things that you're interested in, you mentioned that you like you liked science. Why are you interested in science?
Well, it goes back to when I lived in DC. I worked at the National Air and Space Museum, which is what made me also want to become an astronaut. But when I worked there, everything was super hands-on, and it was just like you would take like a really complicated physics concept or something and dumb it down to be able to present it to kids. And I just like that there are ways to take even super complicated, like, oh my god, it's not rocket science concepts, and make them accessible to everybody.
Mhm.
So I just like that, along with the fact that with science, it's either something you can prove or something people are trying to disprove, right? Like, there's no, like, maybe. It's always like, oh, we're either trying to prove this, or this is why that's not something that's real, which is why it appeals to me.
Okay.
It's like the opposite of living in DC, so.
So you said I'm just curious now. This is just sheer curiosity. You said you want to be an astronaut,
Yeah.
but you're a biomed major.
Yeah.
Like, why not like aerospace or
Because
something?
I don't like math and I don't like engineering.
That's fair. Okay.
My easiest way, because people ask me that all the time, the way I tend to explain it is like, we've already figured out how to drive the ship. I just want to be on the ship doing other useful things.
Okay.
Like, I don't, there's plenty of people who know how to make a rocket. I don't need to make the rocket. I just want to be in it and go do something else useful.
You basically want to be like Beverly Crusher to like Jean-Luc Picard.
That's a reference on
It
right in my
is-
head.
Okay, never mind. No Star Trek. No Star Trek.
That's actually.
She was the doctor on the ship. Like,
Sure, yes.
There you
like-
go.
okay. Yeah. So
Should we bring it back to politics?
I
I
guess.
Okay. We would like you to identify your political affiliation as well as your household's political affiliation.
Oof, that's hard. I'd say I'm fairly liberal, pretty left-leaning, but I'm not like, I'd say moderate. Like, I'm not like extremist. I'm not like Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
Woo, right?
Mm-hmm.
My dad and I are pretty similar. I think my mom leans slightly more conservative, but isn't necessarily aware that she leans slightly more conservative. Like, we'll talk about stuff at family dinners, and my dad and I are on the same side, but we're very, like, I would say open-minded. My mom's just very stuck to her ways, but I also think that comes from the fact that I come from a Russian family, first generation immigrant family, so there's a lot of cultural ties to more conservative views in that. I don't really know how to explain it better than that.
That's interesting. As we get into the topic of immigration, that you would tie immigrant family to conservative values. Just because of, I feel like conservative values in the United States are more anti-immigration.
Yeah.
But I think, can we jump into immigration from there?
Yeah. So I guess my question, I'm going to start with the basics. So, were you born in Russia or were you born here?
I was born here. My brother and my parents and my grandparents, everybody else except for me, were born in Russia.
Okay. And so, like, how long were they in the U.S. before you were born? Fuck.
Did it die?
Let's find out. I'm wondering if it's still recording, and if it is, I'm.
You have to edit out that.
Oh, shit. Okay, I didn't know that was going to happen.
You said fuck.
Dr. Q, just ignore that.
I was gonna say it's Dr. Q.
Yeah,
so
Let me make sure it's actually like charging. Sometimes it won't go down if the charger is actually like working. Cool.
Okay. Yeah. You were asking some folks.
I really don't remember, but I guess how long were they here before they had you?
a couple years, like 5 or 6 max. Yeah, something like that.
And like, why? I guess that's because
My what?
Why did they choose to come here?
yeah,
Is that your
like
question?
My parents grew up hearing about like the American dream and just thought that there were a lot more opportunities. I don't know the details because I know they don't like to talk about it, but they came during a military coup. So basically, Moscow was like, you can either get out now or you're never leaving the country. And they assigned families locations. So my family, for whatever reason, got Olympia, Washington, and they're like, you can either go now or you can never leave. I don't know the actual laws or whatever around that during that time period. I just know that my parents were like, okay, we're going. Like, we're not going to miss the one opportunity we may or may not have. And besides that, they don't really tell me much about it because I don't think they like to talk about it.
okay.
So I just know they left because they were like, that's our one shot, as far as we know.
Interesting. Really.
So I guess like, what do they do for work?
My mom is an architect and my dad is an artist.
Oh, cool.
Very artistic.
And have they gotten citizenship yet, or are they green card
Oh,
holders?
they've been citizens basically since like before I was born, I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
They got it within a couple of years.
Have they ever talked to you about that process? Do you know anything about that process?
I know like the bare minimum. I remember my grandma went through it when I was in like middle school or something, but I don't remember a lot. Just remember that I had to teach her how to pronounce certain words, but that's it.
Was it seemingly a smooth process for a Russian immigrant family? And do you think that there's any difference for, say, other countries of any sort?
I think there's definitely differences amongst countries, especially like now versus then.
Mhm.
There's definitely a lot more tension between the two countries. But I don't know a lot about the process besides the fact that there was like a big test that you have to take. And I remember like we learned about it in, like middle school and high school, and they were like, "This is the citizenship test that none of you have to take, but think about other people who do." And then people would like take the test in a class for fun or whatever,
Yeah.
and to fail it because none of us know all these like random fun facts.
I remember doing that too.
Yeah, but besides that, I don't really know a lot about it.
So, like, I mean, I know you said your parents aren't like super into talking about like the whole immigration process. You said your brother is 6, 7 years older than you, or
My brother is about 10 years older.
10 years older.
Yeah.
Has he ever talked to you about like kind of like what his experience? Okay.
Nope. I just hear like bits and pieces every once in a while. I really don't. I've never had like a sit down like this is what this was like. Like if it comes up in a conversation, they'll say something about it, but nobody's ever actively trying to talk about it, which I don't blame them for.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So I guess playing off her question, you said that you think immigration is different now versus back then because of like just international geopolitical tensions and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Like, would you say that like a big part of like kind of the immigration talk in the United States, some people have claimed is like racially kind of fueled? Do you think if you were coming in from Mexico or say Guatemala, do you think that might have affected your family's chances of getting in, or do you know, or like what's
I would
your
say
perception
yes.
on that?
I think it's a lot harder for people now, just because I think there's a, I'm trying to think of the word. There's like a hive mind effect of people who follow more conservative thoughts. I think, like, if somebody says, oh, like, Mexican people are bad, we don't want them in our country, then there's a hive mind concept of like, oh, well, that's our leader, we're going to believe what he says without ever, like, actually knowing that kind of person or researching the topic or looking up statistics on that sort of thing. So I think that there is, like, a racial difference, and I feel like there's just, like, 1,000 factors that go into it. Like, for me, the first thing to compare it to would be my family, obviously, but not only is my family white, right, we're also, like, my family moved here 20 plus years ago. They didn't move here yesterday. So you have to compare, like, the time, you have to compare from what country, like, between what two countries. It's not necessarily just between, like, Mexico and US that we talk about, right? Like, other countries have big immigration problems. I'm thinking of, like, when I was in Spain, there was, they talked about how they don't want the mixing of cultures with, like, Muslim cultures. So there's, like, different sectors within older cities that were literally, like, separated. Like, there'd be, like, a Jewish sector and a Muslim sector, even though that in reality, if you go way back in history, is kind of the same thing. But there'd be different sections just based on a hive mind, right? Where there's a prejudice based on somebody's leader saying, this is what you should think. And then everybody else is like, okay, I buy into that. Mexican people are bad, right? So for me, it's like there's a lot of factors that go into it. You can't just say, like, oh, this person's a darker, lighter skin color, I'm going to think all these things just because of that. There's a lot of different factors that affect that opinion that you have.
So, I guess when it comes, I know you said that you tend to be more left leaning, but like I know people's individual views don't always match their overall political orientation. Yeah. When it comes to immigration related stuff, are you more right leaning or more left leaning?
I think pretty in the middle. I'm totally fine with legal immigration. I don't like the idea of illegal immigration. I know that people do it because they're trying to like provide for their family or make sure their family is safe. Like, I get the logic behind it, but I still think that, and I also think that the system makes it really, really difficult to legally immigrate to a different country. Mm-hmm. So I get why people illegally do it. I just wish that the system would change so it was easier to do it legally so everybody was happy about it.
Okay. And I guess just, do you have any more questions on immigration? Because I only have one more.
No, go ahead and finish up immigration. We can move.
I guess my final question about immigration is just like, I mean, a big part of this class and a big part of this talk is to like figure out kind of like what people know and like where do you get your information on immigration from? Like what kinds of sources? Like
I listen to NPR like every single day. I think that just comes from living in DC for a couple of years. You just fall into a cycle of like, this is the news that you read and listen to every single day. My brother lives and works in DC. He has a law degree. Like, he will send my family like email links of articles to read. So I just like read a lot, which sounds kind of lame, but I try to keep up to date on like current topics. I know that in NPR for the most part, I'd say. I don't like actively go out of my way to like Google immigration unless somebody like throws something in my face.
Right. I don't think many people our age do.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let you probably handle most of this next section. I dominated way too much, and
that's okay.
I don't think I know as much as you probably do about this issue.
Okay, we're moving on to gun control.
Oh, your favorite topic.
It's not my favorite topic, but I have a couple preliminary questions. I just want to know if you were raised around guns and if you're familiar with firearms and what kinds.
No and no.
No,
I think I've shot a gun once in my life.
Okay.
But like my parents have guns, but I've never like been sat down and been like, this is how you use one, this is how you don't use one, don't touch this, blah blah blah. Yeah. The one and only time I shot a gun, we were away with like family friends, like up in the mountains at a cabin somewhere, and like went somewhere specifically to do that. And I was like allowed to hold and shoot the gun, but I was also like 10 or something. Like it wasn't like an active learning environment for that. Yeah.
So are you interested in any kind of, shooting for sport, or do you, how do I put this? Do you have good associations with, or good or bad associations with guns, I guess, but
Bad.
things like hunting, shooting for sport, target practice, what other kinds of things that people use guns for?
I'm not
bad
interested in them at all. I'd say bad associations, and in terms of like hunting and for sport and everything, I don't know enough about it, but I'd say in my mind, like, it's negatively affecting the environment, right, for the most part.
Okay,
So
that's fair.
So, cool. Do you have any more gun questions?
Yeah, I have a couple more. I was, as far as gun control goes, with the current laws in place, do you generally feel safe in public places? No. But do you feel most people generally feel safe in public places?
I think people who are ignorant, yeah.
People who are ignorant. And do you feel that stricter gun laws would make you and others feel safer?
Yes.
And that is all I have on gun control.
I don't think I have too much, but I guess my big question about gun control is like, or rather, you really hit the nail on the head, I guess. So I guess we can move on to healthcare if you're ready for that.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I guess I'll go with the basics. We're including abortion within the umbrella of healthcare and also just birth control in general. So would you describe yourself as pro-life or pro-choice?
Pro-choice.
Okay. I think that was, like, did you receive a decent quality or a decent amount of time, like, dedicated to sex education during your, like, teen years, or
I
was
don't
it?
think so. I mean, I know that I took a sex ed class in high school. It was probably one semester. I don't think it was the whole year. I don't remember, but I just don't think it was educative enough. But maybe that's just me. I know that places like Alabama like don't even have sex ed, besides like don't have sex. So
I'm from Tennessee. I'm like, my hometown is on the border with Alabama. You are correct. And it went out again. So, so I guess you said you're not like a Bernie supporter, I guess. But so like, what are your thoughts on like the healthcare industry in the United States? And are you insured for that matter? Like,
I am, and I'm really lucky because my mom works for the Washington State government, which is like known to have really good healthcare and really good insurance in general for like everything. But so I like don't even actively think about it as like a problem for me because I'm like, oh, I'm insured. I can get into a car accident. It's fine. You know, whatever. I can need to go to the doctor and it's fine, which is kind of a privilege in that sense. Like I never have to think about it. That being said, I know how inaccessible insurance is for a lot of people, so I think the healthcare system is kind of fucked in a lot of ways because it's not accessible. And like the fact that I can go to the store and my mom's insurance makes a $400 antibiotic like $5 out of my pocket. I'm like, cool, great, whatever. I don't think about it. I look at the copay and I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's people who literally are dying because they can't afford the medicine that they need because pharmaceutical companies claim that this pill costs us $100 to make or whatever. I know for a fact it doesn't cost that company that much. And the fact that they profit off of that is beyond messed up in my opinion. So I definitely think there's a lot of things that need to be fixed within the healthcare system, but I'm not qualified to do it. So
you definitely covered like most of the topics we were just going to
Oh,
talk about.
yeah, no, like
in that one question.
that's great.
It is.
I guess I'm going to ask you a similar question that I asked with like immigration laws. You said that it doesn't actually cost them this much to make a pill.
yeah.
Like, where do you get that information from? I mean, NPR also, or
I mean, I feel like I've looked into it before, but I can't like cite a source.
as long as you feel like I just want to.
Okay, I will say I feel comfortable in my basic knowledge of like healthcare and how it works.
Yeah, no, I'm not attempting to like
No,
destabilize
you're fine.
Cool. You really just ran through most of the things we were going to ask.
Sorry.
I'm
No,
trying to
it's
think of a
fine.
good follow-up because
Okay, so I have a follow-up, but I think you pretty much clearly stated your stance on this already. I was just going to ask, do you feel like all healthcare should be provided to every, U.S. citizen? Do you feel like that should be the general
Yes.
census? Do you feel like it should be just
There's
blanket
countries in
coverage?
Europe that do that and have zero problem doing it. There's definitely funding to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Do you feel like there should be a minimum requirement of U.S. individuals to have health care, or should it just be their citizenship is the reason they get?
What do you mean by minimum requirement?
Do you think they should be employed? Do you think they should be participating in some kind of, I don't know,
That's a tough
health
question.
requirement or whatever else?
That's a hard question because a lot of people are like homeless on the street and trying to get a job and can't get a job. And
Right.
It's like that person's sick and the place isn't going to hire them because of whatever. You know what I mean?
I only ask that because most working citizens get their insurance through their employer.
True.
So,
I mean, technically, by that,
yeah.
you would have to be employed. I mean, I feel like it should be provided for everybody, but in my head, we live in like a utopian society. We
Right.
definitely don't. So.
okay. Yeah, you say you're pro-universal healthcare and you say you're pro-choice. Would you say that, naturally there's a lot of religious pushback for any sort of, birth control measure to be included within healthcare? So would you say that, abortion or other contraceptives, do you think those also fall under, the healthcare umbrella?
Yeah,
Or-
and they should be included.
Okay.
Viagra is literally covered by insurance. Why on earth?
Is it really?
Yes.
It is.
Oh,
Yeah.
So why on earth?
gosh.
And not even just like birth control,
Are
like
you
tampons, we
kidding
have to
me?
pay for out of pocket. Like there's no insurance on earth that's like, yeah, I'll cover tampons.
I didn't
when that's
know
Aren't
that.
they also taxed in
Yes.
That
a weird
actually
way?
bothers me on a
Mhm.
whole level.
Yeah. So if the fact that you need to get your dick hard can be covered by insurance,
I'm
I'm just
The fact
saying.
that I bleed every month should also be.
I
Yeah,
no
exactly.
longer feel bad about saying fuck earlier.
It's Dr. Q, he doesn't care.
I was gonna say he's had me in class, so he knows.
So should we talk about freedom of speech?
Anyway.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So
Are you ready to move on though? Are you
yeah, we got 8 minutes. We can.
Okay, yeah.
We're good. So this is a hot topic. So I guess, what does freedom of speech mean to you?
I don't know. I've never thought about it like that.
I know it's not really it is a hot topic, but not one that's talked about enough.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
whenever someone we all say freedom of speech is great, but I feel like everyone has a vague idea of what it actually is.
And there's also a lot of people who get easily offended by the freedom of speech, so it's kind of a curious topic. You know, it's more like freedom of speech when you're saying what I want to hear.
Yeah. I guess my blanket statement answer to that would be what I use for most things, where it's you can do whatever you want as long as it's not harming
As
other
long as it's
people.
not harming other people, yeah.
Okay.
So you can say
Uh,
whatever you want.
so-
It's not hurting anybody else.
So I guess, kind of giving you the flip side of that question, what would you say constitutes censorship?
Verbal harassment of any kind. Attack on somebody's identity or sense of self. For example, if you're talking about gender or whatever, and somebody misgenders you to purposefully upset you, I think that's not okay. I think that's a point where somebody should step in and say, yeah, you have freedom of speech, but not to the point where you're negatively
Intentionally
affecting
harming
other people
others.
on purpose. Yeah, it's
So-
like how in a school, you can say whatever you want when you're 5 and you're in a classroom, right? But a teacher's gonna step in if one kid's bullying another. You still have freedom of speech. I'm not saying you can't talk. You have to sit there and not say anything ever again. But to a certain extent, if you're harming the environment around you,
Yeah.
I have to step in, and that's my role as an authority figure, the teacher in that situation. So I
So-
feel like there's a legal version of that.
So I guess just talking about harm in the environment, I guess my next follow-up question based off that is what is harm and who decides what that harm
Ooh,
is?
that's a good question.
Because
That's deep.
Yeah, this is deep. I'm I don't know, because harm to one person is very different from what is to the next person. So it's hard to make something that works for everybody in terms of freedom of speech. I'm trying to think of a good example. Because I feel like a lot of people talk about freedom of speech with racism and gun rights and that sort of thing. And then really terrible people say really racist things, and then they're like, that's completely my rights, freedom of speech. You can't like you can't prevent the KKK from meeting up, which literally still happens today, because they do it in a peaceful way, and then they just hang out and talk, so it's freedom of speech. You can't, like, arrest them for doing it.
One of my friends literally joined a neo-Nazi death cult. I mean, he's no longer a friend.
It's like...
And that's a weird story I will get into another time. You'll get that in my next journal entry. So...
That's nuts that it even goes on today. I guess...
Yeah, like, legally speaking, the go-to for that group is always, like, freedom of speech. We can have meetings. We can assemble peacefully and talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about. But then, nowadays, it's like...
but that just
correct,
seems
which is
so
why
backwards.
it's...
So,
Yeah.
are you... So, this is... just a weird thing I've been thinking about. So, there was this one guy, Karl Popper, he had this idea of, like, the paradox of tolerance, where by essentially by tolerating people's intolerance, you allow that tolerance to flourish. Should we tolerate people being intolerant, I guess? Like, is my question. Like, should we tolerate things like Nazi speech or KKK speech, even, like, because they have the freedom of speech, but isn't their freedom of speech ultimately, like, a form of, like, systemic violence or encouraging violence in a way?
That would be how I see it. My thing I always think about, I don't remember the exact quote, but it has to do with the Holocaust, which is, like, very personal to me because I am Jewish, where they... I don't remember exactly how the quote went, but basically it was like, they came for these people and I didn't do anything. I just, like, stood by and watched. And then they came for this group and then this group. And then they came for me and there was nobody left to help me, is the basic idea of the quote. And that's how I think about this sort of situation where it's like, oh, well, it's not directly affecting me. It's not my problem. That racist person over there can say whatever they want because it has nothing to do with me. But, like, the next day, that person is saying something anti-Semitic. Now it has to do with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that next day, that person's like, oh, you're a woman. You should be getting 70 cents to the dollar. Like, eventually it comes around to you, and to a certain point, you can sit by and just watch, right? But I feel like there should be, I don't know, I'm not sure how to, like, say it, like a rule book that you go by where it's like, you can say this up until this point, now you're being a bad person, we're going to stop that.
I like that quote.
I have to find it. It's a good quote, and it's
like
actually
the
said
idea,
much better than what I just, fumbled, but...
Cool. And we're running out of time, so do you want to speed run climate change with us?
We kind of speed runned it.
It's real. Anybody who doesn't think it is stupid.
Okay, so
That's
you definitely believe in climate change. Can you define it? Like, what's, like...
the planet is dying in every way possible.
Okay, fair.
Okay.
That's fair. What do you think, like, do you think capitalism is, like...
Huge problem, yes.
Okay. So one of the big criticisms of, like, people trying to solve the climate crisis is that, like, capitalism is ill-equipped. I was going to ask, do you think that's the case?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What questions do you have? I've got more, but my brain is, like, freezing up.
So what's the newest one? Is the newest green
The Green New
movement.
Deal.
There you go. The newest Green New Deal. Are you very familiar with it at all? No. Okay. I was gonna try to basically ask you. We've been talking about global warming. It was global warming first, and now it's climate change. And there's been literally, like, at least 2 decades worth of knowledge that we're destroying the planet, and seemingly little to no success with reversing that process. So, do you have any master ideas in the back of your brain
For me to
solve
fix the
the whole
planet?
world? Or what do you think?
Not any that are legal, probably.
What do you think of the effort put forward?
I feel like it's non-existent. Like, you
Yeah.
can't compare, like, the 2% of scientists on the world, whatever the statistic actually is, to however many people are involved in these, like, multi-billion companies that are like, yeah, we don't really care what you think.
Right.
So, what do you think of, so do you know anything about, like, other countries' efforts at going green? Like
the bare minimum. I just know that there's countries in Europe that are, like, very active in that sense, and I don't know about having reversed anything. They're actively trying to postpone climate change, like putting in, what are they called, like solar panels and that sort of thing in like every house in the city or whatever. I remember where in like Sweden or Norway, one of those countries, they did that sort of thing. It's like they're much more actively aware of what's going on and are not in denial, which is probably step one, is like make sure everybody realizes it's very real and stop trying to deny literal science. It gets me so
Right.
mad that
So-
people
So in
deny it.
comparison to America, do places like Spain, Greece, whatever, do they actively look like they're doing a better job than the
Yes.
US? Okay.
So,
To me.
Interesting.
why do you think climate change denial is so prevalent in the U.S.?
Misinformation.
Deliberate?
And the hive mind. Yes.
And the hive mind.
Yes, 100%. Same. I mean, it goes back to like the same concept as a pharmaceutical company. I honestly think, like, my
Right.
mom and I have this theory that like cancer has been solved, but they have just held back that
Because of
solution
the-
because of the money.
Yeah. Funny. Same with we just talked about the inflation. Artificial inflation.
Artificial inflation.
Is that what you just said?
What?
Inflation?
Maybe I'm saying the wrong word.
No, what are you trying to say?
For prescriptions.
Oh yeah, the
Oh.
inflation of drug prices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain was like, what?
I was like, climate change,
I
inflation.
was like, I swear, I'm saying the right
No,
word.
you're right.
No, you're good. Do you have any more questions? I feel like like my brain is fried. It's a 6 o'clock, dude. I'm sorry. Like, it's been a long day. Wednesday's my long
Anything
day.
you want to say on any of those topics?
I think so.
Awesome.
Well,
Well-
say hi to Dr. Q.
Yeah. Thank you for coming to visit us and answering all our questions.